I'm just going to share my screen now and just jump into presentation mode. And hopefully, Andrew, if you can give us a thumbs up if you can see that.
Yep.
Great. Good to go. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited to share the future of accounting, AI, and automation in action. This is in collaboration with Intuit QuickBooks, and I'm thrilled to also have on the call with me Andrew Seguin, who is actually I'll let you introduce yourself, Andrew.
Sure.
First.
Yeah. My name is Andrew Seguin. I am the founder of Seguin Financial. We're physically located in Cornwall, Ontario, Canada. We are a virtual bookkeeping and tax firm with 12 full-time staff across Canada, and been doing this for 7.5 years. So very excited to be here and talk more about AI, Dext, and QuickBooks Online.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. And so, yeah, my name's Stephen Edgington. I'm the Chief Product and Technical Officer at Dext. So I lead the product, the strategy, the vision with our teams, and we've been automating bookkeeping, applying AI at the frontier for many, many years. We are a large connected app in the Intuit QuickBooks ecosystem. And yeah, we want to sort of like share more about how AI is going to be changing in the future, see how Dext works in action, and then actually have someone on the ground that uses this for many, many years with a large team automating the process. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to play a quick video just to show kind of like what Dext is at a high level. We let you capture receipts, we let you process them and push them into systems. We let you keep track of accuracy of that data, and we're connected to many, many different systems. We allow you to approve employee expenses, automatically categorize and process invoices, work with your teams and with your clients. So whether you're doing bookkeeping just for your practice for your clients, or whether you're a small business using QuickBooks yourselves and doing your bookkeeping, that's kind of what Dext is all about. And ultimately, we've been doing this for a long time, and we serve quite a large base. So Dext is what we call a bookkeeping automation platform. We have customers in the UK, in Canada, in France, in Australia, and in the US. We work with over 12,000 different bookkeeping partners, from companies that have 5 clients to those that have 50,000 clients. And we have around 750,000 small businesses that are connected to Dext, everything from self-employed to construction to hospitality to professional services, real estate, healthcare, media, and landlords. And we, in effect, help bookkeepers and accountants and CPAs and professionals deliver better services to those clients. And ultimately, we work with 2 kind of main sort of premises, our mission and our vision around making accounting effortless and making time for business. And what we kind of optimize is one of the most sort of manual parts of sort of the process, which is in effect getting data into systems. And when we think about these different phases and where does Dext fit in, you start with the first phase where you've got no automation, you've got no AI, you're kind of working without Dext or kind of any automation at all. And this is where you're kind of like collecting maybe a shoebox of data or files or receipts manually. You're typing them in manually, and then in effect you're doing a kind of yearly accounts or submissions. So it's very time intensive, it's inefficient, it's very low accuracy, and there's really no kind of opportunity to provide insights or any kind of advisory, because it's always retrospective. The second phase is when you kind of like start getting automated. And this is in effect where maybe you're using tools, maybe built-in tools in QuickBooks, maybe tools like Dext, and in effect you're still getting the manual collection, but your teams are now using these tools to get the data in. So it gives you, it's a lot more efficient, it's more, much higher accuracy. It allows you to stay compliant with your teams. But again, it still doesn't give you that real-time insights because it's a little bit too retrospective. And the sort of final mode, what we kind of call effortless, is really around where you kind of put these tools into your client's hands. and you allow your clients to kind of upload, and you move towards more daily, weekly, monthly bookkeeping, where in effect you're getting this data into the system and in effect allowing you to sort of like be more efficient, higher accuracy, drive compliance, then ultimately allow you to sort of like have that real-time insights and advisory. And Andrew, I'd love to sort of like, you to add a little bit of like maybe where you started and sort of like where you are now on this scale and sort of like what these tools, unlock without, if you didn't have them, how you would even sort of manage this process.
Yeah, when I started my firm, being based in Canada, input tax credits or the sales tax sort of tracking was such a big requirement that I knew day one that I needed a tool to collect receipts. Like, and I didn't want to go to that method of having to physically drive to my office, my client's business, and spend time getting receipts and driving it back, or vice versa. I really wanted to have my clients to have some responsibility and ownership of their receipts, but allowing it very seamless for them to send us that information. And when we started utilizing Dext, which was Receipt Bank at the time, it was just a game changer knowing that this is it. Like, this is the future of accounting. It just makes that process so seamless to the point that, we're in this system sometimes as much as our accounting system, like QuickBooks Online. Like, we're in Dext so much because there's so much data being funneled through the system, which is great, to the point that it could be daily, weekly touch points with our clients' data now, as opposed to waiting and being reactionary to their documentation. We're in the file so often that it feels like we're doing it live. But it is a worldwide product. So I have colleagues of mine using in Europe, using in the United States. So it's nice because that has that touch point where it doesn't matter where your client's located. There is a need for receipt documentation and management for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. And so how we like to kind of frame it is that Dext is the only complete bookkeeping automation platform. So, AI automation for your AP and receipt processing. We connect to multiple different data sources. So we have a mobile app. We can pull things in and share, from WhatsApp. You can pull in from the web application, upload documents manually. We can receive emails. You can forward in documents to an email address per client, and that can go directly into the system. We can connect to selling platforms like eBay, Amazon, Etsy, etc., and also pull in from supplier portals along with bank feeds as well. So it's all about getting data in, capturing it, and doing so with 99.5% accuracy. So we capture the documents, we extract data from the documents, and then we allow you to automate that process. So in effect, process that, approve it, and publish into your general ledger as QuickBooks, and then also automate the kind of like the data quality and the business insights so you can drive then advisory. And then if you are a slightly bigger practice or you've started to build a bit of a team, you can then drive the product productivity dashboards and also workflows to allow you to drive that process of how you want the work to be done consistently. And we are connected to over 36 different general ledgers. And QuickBooks is one of our premium connections where we've got very high fidelity of control and publishing and sort of like insights into that system. So with that said, I think it's always better to see these things in action, have live demos and see how they kind of work. So I'm going to just jump out of the slideshow and jump into Dext, and I'm going to jump into the overview that you would see if you're a practice using Dext. And so hopefully you can see this. Okay, Andrew, yeah, great, thank you. So in Dext is optimized, and this is looking at it from a practice perspective to help you manage your collection of documents and processing and automation of AP. And so here I can see all of my clients, and I can see, are we doing the work or is the client doing the work? How frequent are we doing that work? What deadlines are coming up that we need to be aware of for these clients, as well as different rules and different statistics like how old is the oldest item, how many paperwork request items have we got, etc. So I want to jump into just one client here now to see that. And the Dexterity pipes linked to QuickBooks. I'm going to go into the cost space here. It's currently empty. I'm going to add some documents to show you how easy it is to use AI to extract them and get them into QuickBooks. So when I press add, you can go and choose documents and select them, whether it's a sort of individual files, PDFs, images, or zip files full of lots of documents that clients provided you. Or you can use the mobile app to get that in, or you can forward it on an email. So let's just add a few documents here. And I've got some sort of sample documents that I'm going to just select a whole range of and press open. So what this is going to do now is this will in effect upload the documents into the cloud. And you'll see sometimes if the document's already been seen, it will say this has been rejected, this is a duplicate. So we do deduplication automatically. We'll process these documents, and now this will be leveraging AI to process them. So once everything's gone up, I'm going to just refresh the screen so you can see this here. And if I'm quick and I hover over these, you'll see the spinning circle. And what we've actually done is here you can see that it's gone and processed each of these different documents. So I can just click on this to sort of see the document. So I can see the details of the document. It does the extraction. And as I refresh this now, you'll see the 40 odd is now switched into the inbox. And now all of these documents have in effect been extracted, processed, and now we can kind of go into them and see the details of those documents. You'll see a little indicator here to say this category was chosen by auto categorization. So you'll have in effect, AI has looked for the category, it's extracted the details and the amounts and the tax, and then I can look at that document and I can see the details. We also do things where we predict things like the description. So I can predict the description, I can put this in place, and then to get this into QuickBooks, I just press publish. So the idea is I can quickly move through, publish and process and get the data into the system really, really simply. And then once that's published, how it works is these items go into the archive. And in the archive, then you can click on the link and go straight into QuickBooks. And so here we'll go into the QuickBooks tab. We'll find that document and we'll show the detail. But it's pretty cool because what we also do is with the Dext extension, which is a Chrome extension I'll talk about in a moment, you can in effect enable some extra features inside of QuickBooks. So if I was looking at a transaction normally, and you'll all be familiar with this screen, I can see the document, I can see the category, the food purchase description that we put in there, the amounts, etc., are all coming through. But I have to click on the attachment to go and see the attachment. And so again, what we've got is when you're connected to Dext and you're using the Dext extension, the Dext extension, which is free if you're using Dext, allows you to sort of like get a few extra sort of flourishes and behaviors inside of QuickBooks to allow it to be more optimal. And you know, when we talk about Dext, it's all about saving time. It's all about making sure things are accurate, and it's all about sort of like allowing you to do even more. So QuickBooks already has the ability to like maybe import a document, but you'll see when you're processing lots of documents, you've got hundreds to pull in, and you're doing this for lots of clients. These little things, this time really adds up. And Andrew, I'd love you to sort of like add a little bit of context to sort of like how, because again, QuickBooks has these tools in, some of these have these tools in, but when you are doing this every day, sometimes you need that optimized interface.
Yeah, so I think, you provided me an interesting stat for my firm. I think we're processing around 8 to 9,000 documents per month on our firm. And we're a team of 12. So we're not this like giant mega firm, but we're processing that many documents. Could you imagine trying to manually create bills and expenses and type out the date, the sales tax, the category, the dollar amount, the supplier, and it would just the amount of time savings living and breathing index that provides us is so substantial that it easily frees up so much capacity and time for our firm to do other types of work that is sometimes even more profitable. But I think when you're utilizing a system like Dex to do 30, 40, 80, 100 transactions a week, a month, you can really systemize and automate that process to really be super efficient, right? You can look for duplicates super fast. You can make sure there's some awesome filtering capabilities that exist in Dex if you want to say, I want to look for things that are different currencies. or I want to look at things that have no tax rates assigned to it. And it allows you to like really drill down into the granularity, not only in what's called, like I call this your dashboard, your inbox, but then even post published items, right? If you're trying to find an item in the past, so many times you would have this like administrative folder for yourself for all your documents, and it becomes this like really, really massive folder structure. Well, it's just nice that you can just search for anything you want in Dext in case of an audit. If your client's asking for a specific expense or receipt in the past, doesn't matter if it's 2 years ago, 6 years ago, you can find things in seconds. And that actually has been really beneficial with government audits. Anytime they say, hey, we need these 10 receipts or these 100 random expenses, we can get that in a matter of minutes, where before it would take us hours and it would be this sluggish process. So there's so much little features in Dex that really takes it to the next level as a receipt management tool for us when it's integrated with QuickBooks Online.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and so like Andrew said, the search is really, really powerful. You can search for any of the text on any of the documents, but you've also got this concept of kind of like a faceted search where you can in effect go and look for the last 4 digits in the payment method. Yeah, so you can find that those kind of like all the kind of like expenses that have gone to a card. You can then cherry pick the ones that you want, and then you can put them onto an expense claim. I can create a new claim here. Let's do this for James. Let's say this is for the end of May. I'll just put this May 25. And so what that then does is that puts into an expense claim all the items that we'd pulled through. This can be configured to do this automatically. And then in effect, what you can do is you can configure this to publish into QuickBooks. I'm just going to show you export that to PDF with the summaries. And what you can then you get is in effect that document. You get a nice document with like all the attached items that you can link back to. So you've got that full traceability. And then the other powerful feature that we have, or one example of them, is around approvals. So you can see here, you don't want everything going into QuickBooks unless you've actually made sure it's correct and validated. And you'll notice this one here, this document, this invoice has got a certain amount, and the request for approval button is required. So I can't just publish this straight into QuickBooks. I can configure an approval rule that says anything over $1,000 or £1,000 or whatever kind of Canadian that I want to. It can be configured and then routed to that individual to do the approval. So it lets you put in control before things go into the kind of the general ledgers. And that can really start to build trust with clients, because often they're kind of like passing this to you to kind of like validate the data that goes into the system. And you can make sure these things have been delivered, they've been received, they're happy with the invoices to be processed. Okay, great. So that's kind of like a high level of Dext if you haven't seen it before. I now want to talk a little bit about like, so what? How's this different? Because ultimately there is a big difference with how Dext AI works and ultimately what this means when you think about automation. Now at Dext, we talk about 99.5% accuracy, and ultimately that is so important, because if you can't guarantee the accuracy, it's very hard to automate things further. You have to trust these systems. And at Dex, we process over 320 million invoices and receipts annually. Now, imagine doing that manually, it would be impossible. But we're also constantly refining the system. So we make over 10 plus changes a day to the system. And last year, as an example, we had 4 minutes of downtime. So that's pretty incredible from a kind of like a system. And I think, Andrew, you'll be able to attest to the fact that like Dext has to be online. Like this is the kind of like the heartbeat of and the heart of a firm to get the data in to deliver the services. And so it has to be online.
Yeah, it has to be. I the amount of expenses and bills that we manually create in QuickBooks Online is probably 1 out of 100, maybe more than that. It feels so backwards sometimes to me when you're not using a receipt management tool to record data like that, because it's gotten so fast to us that I can process transactions, 2, 3 seconds. I look at a receipt, I'm trusting the data, I'm trusting the accuracy that is capturing sales tax, the category, the supplier rules to really help automate that process, that, I can process 30 transactions in 2 minutes, where if I had to manually do that, if Dex went offline for an hour, I probably wouldn't even bother doing data entry, because I would rather wait that hour, do those 30, 40 transactions when, if it's back up, and I would still probably save more time. So it's like, it really, for our firm, it's a trifecta of our software requirements, which is a really good accounting system, QuickBooks Online, the best receipt management system, Dex, and a good payroll app. Like those, every client that we work with needs at least those three things for us to even work with them. If they don't decide to take any of those three, we choose not to work with them, because it completely changes our firm structure in how we work with clients.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it makes it not profitable. It's just like you want consistency. You want to be able to deliver a better service, and so ultimately, you need a tool to do so. And what we do at Dext is we have teams that then drive this kind of human feedback loop and the sampling of documents. So when you are evaluating different AI tools, one of the questions and one of the most important questions to ask is how do you know it's accurate, and how do you validate the accuracy? Yeah. And so at Dex, we sample over 100,000 documents. We've processed over 1.2 billion documents. And ultimately, then you saw the little spinner with the different attributes like the supplier and the tax and the total. If those are kind of incorrect, or we see a signal that they're incorrect, that feedback loop goes back into how we train the AI models and how we refine the process. So let's talk a little bit about what is AI and what are AI agents, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail of like the kind of like the things to think about when you're thinking about AI, automation, and ultimately where the future's going with this technology. So AI is, it's a set of technologies that allow computers to perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. Yeah, it's a combination of algorithms, data, computational power to simulate human intelligence. And the example is extracting data from a document and auto-categorizing it and picking the correct general ledger. Yeah, so just like you've seen. Now, you may have heard about agents. And agents is kind of this concept where software programs interact with their environment. They collect and use data to perform self-determined tasks to meet predetermined goals. So that sounds a little bit abstract, but an example is chasing outstanding invoices for customers, kind of like, and chasing the paperwork that maybe you need from them. And so, one of the really important things to be aware of is that not all AI is the same. Yeah, we are going through this kind of like this AI bubble at the moment. There's lots and lots of excitement on AI, and I do encourage all of you on the call to explore it, test it, validate it, but do so with this kind of in mind that it's not always the same. There's examples where they'll get amounts wrong. Yeah, like maybe interprets it as like $720 versus $7.20. There's examples where it gets currency wrong. Yeah, sometimes these documents are nuanced. Is it US? Is it Canadian? Sometimes they get line items wrong. Sometimes they get supply names wrong. Sometimes they interpret ampersands as numbers. They have, they don't differentiate between the ticket and the receipt. They don't get totals right. They fail to extract real world documents that are crumpled, got coffee stains on, and have issues. So, make sure you do have a good test bed to validate. And, maybe Andrew, processing 9,000 a month, right? Like you can't afford to be fixing each of these documents all the time when you get issues.
No, for sure. Yeah. Thankfully, we've been relying on Dex for so long, 7 years. The amount of documents we're probably close to, at least tens of thousands of documents. We're probably close to maybe even a million at this point, which is crazy to say. You're right. There's been such a substantial improvement over Dex over the last few years in regards to its AI usage and its accuracy that is really beneficial for us, because if 1 out of 10 documents had an error in it, the time it actually takes to fix the error in the accounting ledger takes a long time, because you might not realize it then and there. You might have to find the bill, find the expense, change the currency, change the supplier, the tax amount. It can actually be pretty cumbersome. And over the last few years, we've definitely noticed that larger increase in accuracy, which is so important as we're processing more and more documents on a monthly basis as our firm continues to grow and scale. We can't be spending more time or a lot of time fixing errors, and you sort of have to start trusting and leaning into the product to help you leverage that sort of evolution of AI. And it's been really, really important to see that improvement with Dex on its AI usage. So it's been great.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think, what's really important about that is that the next phase of AI and where we're going to with agents requires the foundations to be right. If the foundations are wrong, you can't automate further. And so like take an example of a document. Yeah, like we are getting the stuff out. But if you get the date of if you get the due date wrong, yeah, if you get the total wrong, if you get the tax elements wrong, if you get the supplier or the category wrong, or you don't get the PO number and you don't get the description, you can't automate the next phase, which is actually, I think, one of the most exciting next phases with with regards to agents and this sort of like the agentic process. And like I said before, it's we process over 1.5 million documents a day. We sample 100,000 a month. We've done 320 plus million documents in the last 12 months. And we have lots of users providing the feedback. Dext is at scale. We've got over 600,000 users that use the platform weekly, and we connect it to lots of different GLs. So we see lots of documents from many, many countries, many, many currencies. When you travel, you've got to be able to support that. It's critical. And there's a lot of nuances in extracting data. Now, just sort of like, just to show like an example of like agentic behavior and bringing things to the next level. Supplier statements is a good example where this used to be something you had to do manually, and it's a new workflow you can now do in Dext. And I think I want to show you an example of what this is because it's kind of like quite powerful to see as a example. So I'm in the cost space in Dext. We're in exactly the same account. And this is a separate area for supplier statements or like a vendor statement when they send you, hey, you owe us this. These are the invoices on that we need you to pay. And ultimately, you now have to do a job. So it's kind of like an agent working in the environment. You've got to check what's the age payables report like in QuickBooks for this supplier. Is the invoice in supplier? Is the invoice indexed? What's missing? How help me reconcile this process and then contact the supplier to pull that back. So let's just pull in an example supplier statement. So here's an example one. It sort of takes exactly the same path. It gets uploaded, it goes into processing, and now it's been processed. And if I click on it, what you'll see is the statement on the left-hand side says, this invoice from this vendor TradeSync, I've got this invoice, this invoice, this invoice, this invoice, this invoice, and you owe me this amount. Now, what we've done automatically in Dext is we've gone and run the age payables report. So we get the age payables report for that date. And then in effect, we've also gone and checked, is this invoice indexed and is this invoice in QuickBooks? Is this invoice indexed? Is it in QuickBooks? And you'll see here, there's a difference, which is the difference of these two missing invoices. Okay, so in effect, this has taken a process. Now, this is only 5 lines, but you could have 200 lines. You can have some pretty big statements that is and I had my own business, I ran my own business for a while as well, and managing statements and trying to reconcile different systems and where you are, it's really easy to get lost. And ultimately, what this allows you to do is just go request paperwork and then send an email to the supplier to say, hey, email these in. And then what you can do is once they send you the invoices, you can easily get them into the system. And again, there's a few little sort of kind of nice things that you can do inside of Dext if you've got the Dextension installed. If they did send you one of the invoices that's missing, you can just right click, upload into Dext and get it loaded in. But you can also just be in the QuickBooks application. Let's go back to the home page. And if you've got one of the documents that you want to upload, I can just drag and drop it into QuickBooks and you'll see the Dextension appears at the top and that will then load it straight in. So you don't have to be in Dext to use Dext. You can just be in effect in QuickBooks. You can drag things in and you can kind of work through those processes. And then as you refresh that, you'll see now that one's in Dext. I can do the same thing. I can do it manually. I can just maybe open it and just show you live. I can upload that into Dext and that will then go into QBO process. And again, that's done. And then again, we can just quickly go to that document, publish it. That one's indexed, and just easily drive that process.
Yeah, it's a great tool. You know, could you imagine trying to look at 100 lines and there's one invoice that you're missing and you're like, ugh, like it it just takes a lot of manual time to do it before. Like it's like doing a reconciliation and there's one transaction for some reason that didn't flow through out of 200 and you're like, I got to try to find this one or two these two transactions. Well, the supplier statements was like, this is where the heavy excitement of the future of AI and agentic bookkeeping really comes into effect. And it's like, this is like one tool that's like, oh, wow, this is it. Like, this is where these little nuanced tasks that you might do per month that is feels so manual and so tedious that it really helps streamline the next step. And it's like, it was awesome. It's an awesome add-on feature that you guys released.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And I think ultimately, at the moment, you still have to go request missing paperwork, but that just becomes a checkbox to say automatically request paperwork from the supplier. And then in effect, you process all the invoices, they send you a statement. The system, the agent automatically asks the supplier, hey, can you provide these missing ones if you want to get paid? They forward them into the email in address. When you come to do the work, everything's there. You've done the request for missing paperwork. It sort of completely removes and automates that process. And if you have a client that really has a lot of documents, or you're a business using QuickBooks yourselves and you're interacting with sort of like vendors and trying to keep on top of this, it really helps drive that. And tied in with the approval process, where you can configure inside of Dext for a particular client in the settings approval workflows. And you can say, hey, if it's this supplier and it's this amount, or we're going to this class or this category and it's over this certain amount, route it to this person. It allows you to sort of like drive that process, but still have control with approvals. And this is where the future's going. It's going around, you're going to be helping validate what the AI does. You're going to, in effect, drive more workflows agentically, where these agents and systems are doing things how you define them to be done. But you're also going to want to have the control where you can validate and verify. So in Dext, you can absolutely configure a particular supplier. So we could say whenever we have an invoice from TradeSync, we can set up a rule and we can say just publish it. Yeah, so it just comes in, gets published. You can say, just set this description, just extract the line items for me as well. You can control this and sort of like define at what level do I want to have human oversight and what level do I want to publish. But you've still got all that auditability, all of the traces and the history and what happens. So, if someone comes in and they change this to be something else, that history is all there for you. And we use this history. This is what drives the behavior of the future, because this history, as you do the bookkeeping, it learns the patterns, and that's where like the agentic behavior is going into the future. Great. Okay. So let's just jump through that one. Let's just go into a little bit now of kind of like some of the kind of capabilities that build the foundations. So at Dext, we are constantly refining the AI models. These aren't just kind of off-the-shelf models and AI models that you can use like ChatGPT. These are sort of like specially trained that in effect can drive that accuracy. They are based on the same kind of technology, so transformer technology. They're small language models that know how to extract different components, and we are constantly tuning and refining these in Dext, and we've been doing that for a number of years, and that's what gives us the accuracy. Supplier statements is a good example of what kind of agentic behavior that we introduced, where we're now taking a whole new document that was very hard to do before this technology was available, and helping you reconcile and in effect run the age payables report and make sure everything's correct. The email trail allows you to see when an email comes in, what was the contents of the email. Again, this is all about saving time when your client forwards something in, so you know how to code that. Maybe it's a specific project, maybe it's a specific class, maybe it's just because you need to validate that information. You don't have to then pick up the phone or send them an email or WhatsApp them or message them. All that detail's available. And the Dextension that I showed you, that's a massive save in time. And maybe Andrew, you can talk a little bit about how that works for you and your firm.
Yeah, so Dextension it's one of those like massive quality of life improvements that just really adds on to the platform speaking to QuickBooks Online. So, one of the biggest things you showed was I just actually really like seeing the attachment if I'm going into the bill directly. So if I'm in QuickBooks and I'm looking at a bill and expense, I don't want to click an attachment and then the tab opens up. Sometimes it even takes over the existing tab. So I click back and it's annoying. So being able to see both the transaction information and the documentation at the same time has been great. Be able to go back and forth. So like going QuickBooks, click a button and immediately puts you to the actual document index. So for training purposes, if I see something was categorizing correctly in QuickBooks Online, instead of trying to find that document index manually, if I'm already existing in QuickBooks, I click the button, it brings me to Dext, and I can see who published the document, the history, see what changes they made, and I can sort of provide some up training to my team about, hey, just an FYI, I noticed you did this, but next time this supplier, and maybe I have this supplier role right then and there, right? Instead of having to go through a manual process in Dex, I can just do it right then and there. And there's a lot of cool other little features like putting the attachment in the bank feed when there's a document matching. Like there's a lot of little, I guess, nuggets of quality of life things in Dex extension that I think people, if you're using Dex, get Dex extension. I think it really elevates the product itself. And I think it's not being utilized as much. And I really think people should be absolutely putting that as part of their tech stack for sure.
Yeah, and we'll just to show you, so Dextension's available in the Chrome store if you've got Dext. There's over like 8,000 weekly active users, so it is actually kind of like used quite a lot. And this is the sort of, this is what some of the kind of like real power users use, and it just lets them go much faster and in effect allows them to do more. And just as I go into kind of like in Dextension, you can just see some of the things. So we can, like you saw, you can view the attachment when you're viewing the invoice. You can keep track and see like kind of when you look at the dashboard and you're looking at sales, say in the QuickBooks homepage. If I scroll down a little bit on the dashboard, you'll see kind of like you have your information, like here's your expenses, here's your sales, but actually your sales aren't necessarily your sales if you've got items that haven't been published yet. So again, we kind of like got little flourishes and refinements where like it unlocks and shows you information that's really, really powerful. As well as things like, as you're, like Andrew said, as you kind of look at transactions to reconcile in the bank, you can see a little paperclip. You can make paperwork requests if you're missing information. You can see the statement on the payment to help reconcile which invoices you've got to match to. And then you can like kind of drill back between systems. And what the whole point of the extension is in effect, you want to be working as efficiently as possible. And that is ultimately, AI is just a technology, it's just a tool to allow you to do more. And over time, the future is you're just going to be doing more. Yeah, there's still humans and there'll still be humans. You'll still be validating. You'll be the one that approves things, but it's all about having the right technology and foundations in place to be able to configure the system to do more. And approvals are really important because again, the more you automate, you're going to have controls in place to make sure that you don't automatically, sort of put something through that you wouldn't do normally. We also allow you to do mileage. So again, giving your clients the ability to now capture more structured information around things like mileage and kind of like any kind of like fuel and sort of gas processing. We've got that very powerful advanced search to be able to find things, extract things, and be able to reason over that data. Control on roles and permissions to make sure as you've got new starters in the firm or different teams, you want to be able to allocate clients to them, allow them to control what permissions people support. And then we can also connect to like Amazon Business and kind of Amazon Seller and these more digital connected platforms to get all the data into the system. So
Yeah, Dex has for some clients, it actually replaces a lot of different third-party products that we used to use. So we used to have a dedicated approval bill product, a dedicated mileage product, a dedicated expense report product. And now it's just like it is a lot easier to sort of reduce your software tech stack because there is definitely tech overload, it's app overload. And when you have too many apps, it's hard to train your team. There's a lot of little SOPs, different software for each client. So it is a lot easier when you're in one product, right? You can teach your client and your client already knows the product. It knows Dex. It knows how to upload documents. It's also not that difficult to do add-on expense reimbursements and mileage and approvals, and it allows you to grow with businesses who have these little extra needs over time, and it makes it a lot easier.
Yep, exactly. And again, like how we see things is, QuickBooks has a very rich app store for these extra things that you need, but likewise, you don't want to have too many. It's that kind of like finding the right balance of like, how do you have a client come to you and then you basically can give them, they can walk out after that first meeting and you've kind of changed their life because you've made it easier for them to stay organized. Made it easier for you to give them better advice. And that's where kind of like the next thing is what we've added to Dex, which I think is really kind of exciting. And drives to the future of AI. And this is called Dext Vault. And Vault is all about how do you capture all the other documents that aren't the costs, they aren't the receipts, they aren't the bank statements, they aren't the sales items. It's all about like the leases and the contracts and the loan agreements and the insurance and the certificates and all the stuff that you need to stay organized in a business also needs to have a home. And if you've got clients that are better organized, they'll be better run businesses. So the vault is in effect another space that you can capture all these documents. And then we use AI to extract out and summarize the documents, to tag them, to drive permissions and controls, and later easily collaborate with the clients. So I'll just quickly show you so you can see how that kind of works. So we've talked about costs and supplier statements and mileage. The sales space is kind of the same. You've got quotes and you can create invoices and you've got your sales invoices. That could be just a handwritten note, or they could be documents that maybe your clients like to do their invoicing in Excel or in Word. You can just forward that into Dex and it will go into QuickBooks. Bank allows you to do bank transactions, do matching, do extraction of the sort of statements. So you can process banks that maybe don't have bank feeds, or if you're doing audits, you can use that to get the data out. And Vault is our new space that allows you to keep track of all these other documents. So it works very similar to everything else. You can add a document to the Vault, and the Vault then extracts that data. And you can see this is just an example, obviously dummy document, but it'll extract out the details and allow you to see the kind of context of that document. You can define tags. Like, for example, I can define tags for 1099 forms or for loan agreements, and you define the tags just with natural language. So any 1099 IRS form will be tagged now as a 1099, and you can then capture those all into a folder structure with your vendors, with your contracts, however you want to structure them. And what's really powerful is as a partner, as an accounting practice or firm, you can configure the Vault templates. So you might define a template of when a new client comes to work with you, maybe it's a dentist, maybe it's a restaurant, maybe it's a construction site. You can set out and say, right, these are the types of documents that you should have that allow you to stay organized. And if you put these together, this is how we can work between each other. So when I'm providing advice, I've got all the context. And maybe Andrew, I know this is new, but this is kind of like, obviously the next unlock by allowing you to give better advice. And I love your kind of perspective on Vault.
Yeah, historically, we've always told our clients, if you're unsure, send it into Dext and we'll figure it out, right? Like, and sometimes you're like, okay, well, it's not a cost item, it's not a sale item, it's like an administrative document that, hey, it might be helpful to have, but what do you want to do? Do you want to download it, rename it, go into your own separate Google Drive folder and figure out where it belongs? So there was this sort of purgatory area we had at one point where we would say, okay, let's just archive it. We're not going to publish it at QuickBooks. It's an administrative document. It's not a financial document in that case, but it still might be helpful to have down the road. Sometimes it's like a vendor giving you payment information. So it's like, when they email in their invoice, sometimes it's a separate document of their payment information. Well, you don't want to just like archive it and really tough to find it down the road. So Vault is just like in between sort of portal that's been really helpful for those like nuanced cases where we want to keep the document. We want to be able to search for it very easily down the road and utilize the AI component of trying to build a tag system. So you can build a tag system of, vendor payment information. So that way, anytime a vendor sends in payment information, well, it's tagged automatically. And then I don't have to worry about trying to find it in the future because you're going to be able to utilize Vault to make that process a lot more seamless. So it's been really good for a lot of cases of like, it's not a cost item, it's not a sale item, but I don't want to delete it. It's just good to have, right? So it's really nice in regards to that in between for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about like where the future's going, these AI models are getting really, really powerful. So obviously, a lot of the use cases we've talked about, we've got like extraction from documents, whether it's a bank receipt, invoice, etc. You've got now extraction from any kind of document that's business related. Where the future's going is then helping you do advisory. So, in the future, you'll be able to, if you've got accurate data and you've got all of the context, you'll be able to use AI to help you help clients. Yeah. Like to look at the data and sort of analyze, okay, what does cash flow look like? Well, it's important to be aware of the lease when that's up. Yeah, so we'll do things like, in these documents, we can kind of like flag the ones to review because, we'll extract out like the dates. You can sort of like extract out key dates from the documents, and then that can go into the review section for, in effect, when you need to be aware of this document being required. You can flag items. Yeah. So again, it sort of helps you stay organized when you're switching context between lots of different clients because you're going to be supporting more clients than you are today when you start using AI. You're going to have to. And ultimately, you want to be able to easily have all that context available for that to work. All right. So next, I'm just going to give you a little bit of heads up of where we're kind of going um, after this as well. So the next thing, so we haven't, this is in effect a little bit into the future of what we're going to be adding, but I think it's important to talk about because it shows the future of where we're going. And ultimately, we're going to be looking to add into Dex this concept of an efficiency score and also the ability to track your time that you're spending when you're doing your kind of like your work for each of the clients. And again, we want this to be kind of like automatic. Nobody likes doing timesheets. And what we want to be able to do is allow you to kind of automatically sort of count the time that you're in Dex, the time that you're in QuickBooks, the time that you're in the payroll application, the time that you're doing other bits of work for that client automatically, so that you can see where your time's, where you're spending more time than you should be. And then the efficiency score is in effect a way of how do I optimize that? Yeah. So in effect, you aren't using the mobile app to submit. Yeah, get your clients to use the mobile app instead. You've got a sort of like an older delay day index, which is the date and how old are the documents that get uploaded to today's date. Yeah, so you want to reduce that because that means you can get better advice. You've got suppliers that don't have rules in. So a lot of this, Andrew, I know this is new, but this is the sort of stuff that you've had to like learn over many, many years to optimize your firm to get your team members optimized. And this is kind of like where we're going to sort of like, again, it's all about driving efficiency, making time for business, yeah, and optimizing the process.
Yeah, this is exciting, right? I think, as a firm owner, I'm always just trying to look at my firm's sort of productivity, efficiency, and I don't look at to punish my team, but it's more like where are we spending our time, right? And where are areas that we can look to free up some of my team's time, right? And I don't want to be overworking them. And having Dex actually tell me these are actionable items that I can look at on a per client basis, this is where like the next evolution of like technology comes into effect, right? It's like it's giving me information and action points. For instance, you would tell me this client has an efficient score of 50%. I think a lot of apps will say you're not efficient. It's like, okay, well, tell me what areas that I need to do. And you're telling me, it's like, okay, well, no mobile app submissions. So for me, that's a red flag. It's like, how are they giving me their gas receipts? How are they giving me their Walmart expenses, right? Are they going to the office to scan it and then send it? Well, that means it's probably going to be delays because I doubted they're doing it on a daily basis. So, which means that we're probably spending more time to ask them for information. So, I would say, hey, team, these are specific areas that I want you to tackle this month when you have some downtime. Go into the efficiency score, tackle supplier rules, right? I want to get the top 10 suppliers that we're utilizing without rules. And anybody, where any client we don't have a mobile app, get them on. Have a quick 15-minute meeting with them, ask them why it's not working and what we can do. This is like the evolution of Dex that I'm really excited about because it's not just doing the work, it's giving me information on how to do the work better. And that's like super, super exciting.
Exactly. And we're also doing this because this lets us identify, and again, if you're thinking about AI, you might be at different levels in your firm with regards to AI adoption. The most critical thing is not to just like introduce AI because that's the buzzword. It's like apply it as a tool to areas where you're going to save time. Yeah. Apply it as a tool to enable you to do more, to drive up the bar, to raise the bar of quality, to deliver better services. And so if you don't know where the time is being spent, yeah, no one likes doing timesheets. And also, if you charge by the hour, your pricing model's wrong. Yeah, like ultimately, because this is just you're gonna be doing more with less. And so, if you use this technology and you price by the hour, you're gonna be, your kind of margins are gonna come down. So, it's really critical to, in effect, have this sort of like ambient tracking, so you can see where's the time being spent, making sure you're recovering, the kind of the cost that you have, make sure you're pricing work correctly. And when we then think about agentic AI and agents, so you took supply statements as an example. That's just the start of where we're going. Like, imagine if we can like drive the chasing of the requesting of paperwork. We've got the bank rec. We know which items are missing. You've done all your kind of like rules. We've chased the missing paperwork, but we've still got transactions that are over a certain amount that we've got to send the client to ask them for the kind of like the proof or that kind of the tax documents that are required. That will start to automate. The next is, you saw briefly when I make changes, when I do the bookkeeping or I start to like change the category or enter the description, all of that rich sort of change data is being tracked. Yeah, we're looking to drive that with agentic AI to be able to do that for you automatically. So when you look at a document, it goes, "Hey, do you want to do these things?" And you go, "Yes, please." And in effect, it takes those as rules and applies them automatically. The next is more contextual data checks. Yeah. So, and again, if you've got, if you can put an analyst on every client that's looking at all this data all the time and then giving you the nuggets of information to speak to the client about, like, oh, be aware of this, be aware of that. It's going to unlock massive value. It's going to anticipate problems faster. It's going to allow for better decisions. And then ultimately, again, when you've got this ability to sort of see where you're spending the most time, where you don't maybe have the right configured workflow, it's going to let you manage the team. Do you need 12 people in your firm? Do you need 24? Do you need 10? It's hard to tell if you can't measure. And ultimately, if you know that you've got capacity in the team, you can then drive that and take that time that you're not doing the manual work to then drive the marketing. Yeah, use MailChimp, go and kind of like get more customers, and in effect drive a better process. And so it's a pretty exciting time. And Andrew, I love your kind of like just as we wrap up here, we'll give 5 minutes for questions. But as a kind of firm owner, if you had more time, where would you focus it? I'm sure it's not on data entry.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a future forward firm owner where like I'm not looking to be, greedy in regards to profitability. And if I can unlock some wellness time for my team to spend more time on their own for like retention purposes and like longevity of the firm, that's what I'm going for, right? So every little bit counts. And I think that for me, that's like regarding AI, it's like it's such a exciting and not a scary thing to be thinking about because I think there's some bookkeepers or accountants thinking that it's going to replace us. It can't. It won't. There's such a personal component of what we're doing that business owners don't know exactly what the end result even looks and how to transcribe that information, and they want handholding. Like that's what they want. And allocking some time on our firm's end, on the team's end, that we're not having to do manual data entry, that we just spend a 30-minute conversation with the client more often, right? Instead of being like, "Oh, I'm so busy the first 2 weeks of the month, I have so much work to do." It's like, yeah, I can spend 30 minutes to chat with you, sure. And then that unlocks the value of the client of like being able to charge more. Sometimes that is the game changer. And whether you want to work more with an existing client, whether you want to take on new types of clients, whether you want to give your team some free time, give yourself as a business owner some free time that you probably haven't had in a long time. That's exciting, right? That's super exciting, and I'm absolutely looking forward to like every month the evolution of this like agentic AI and different apps. It's really really good for our firm, for our industry, and I'm not going so deep into it and making sure to automate every single thing right now. I'm taking my time with it, making sure, to your point, testing the products that are working well for us. But very excited to see what things look like the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, completely agree. So before we go to questions, I just want to make sure everyone is aware of like the up and coming events. There's a Get Connected event in Vancouver on June the 10th and 11th, and there's also one in Toronto on the 25th and 26th. And then you should all be aware of the Intuit Connect in Vegas. So scan that QR code, register, and get access to those. And Dex will be there at these events as well, and we'd love to kind of connect. But with that, thank you, Andrew. And I'm going to stop
Yeah, thanks,
sharing.
Stephen.
And we have got a few questions. We'll be conscious of everyone's time. So we've got we've got some questions in 4 minutes. So I'll kind of try and fly through some of them and answer some of them. So one of the questions was around clients with duplicate receipts, mainly Amazon. How can we process that? So when documents go into Dext, we look at the dates, we look at the supplier, we look at the amounts, and we'll pick up those duplicates. There's different settings we have for whether you want to automatically remove duplicates and they go into submission history, or if you want to review and validate them. So if you're a Dext customer, make sure you've looked at the settings on the client account. And we've actually changed the default to review now because it's a bit easier for everyone to sort of like see those two documents and you can compare them, you can split them, you can merge them. I mentioned 10 changes a day. Can you describe what kind of adjustments are being made? So yeah, so when I say like we make 10 changes a day, we've got a pretty large development team that we kind of like drive. And a change could be a new AI model. A change, for example, we've just changed the PDF viewer to be more embedded to make it simpler for users. We add things like the data extraction requirement changes the description, better advanced search. We've just changed how expense reports optimize. So it's a balance. We try not to break workflows, but in effect, it's an evolving platform. It's evergreen, just like QuickBooks. We're making it better all the time. There's a question to say the workflow, we often need to add line items manually to reflect the correct tax amounts. And for larger clients, it becomes quite time consuming. Would it be possible to Dex to automate the creation of these line items? Yes, so we have actually coming up pretty soon a new model for line items, and we are going to be able to pull out and aggregate. So sometimes you actually don't want all the line items in a document. You just want them grouped up by tax or grouped up by type. And AI now is capable to sort of reason over the different line items and sort of group them up. So again, make sure you're following along on the Dext release notes to see that coming. There's a question on where is the efficiency score on the platform? It's not released yet. That's a feature that we are going to be coming out with pretty soon. It'll be available for the enterprise, for the essentials plan and for the advanced plan. There's a question. The firm I work for is very excited to try these new features. We have many clients who drop off paperwork, would love to save time with all the manual entries. Yeah, I'd say absolutely. Like sometimes people think that it's hard to adopt. You don't have to adopt it. If you've got a firm and you're doing lots of clients in a more traditional way, you can just add like a small number of them. You can do the work first and then introduce them to the mobile apps. And Andrew, maybe just as we wrap up, like how do you, like I know you said like obviously now everyone has to use Dext, that's how you're doing it. But like maybe what's the advice for somebody that like needs to sort of
Oh,
like
clients love it. Like it's been the product that for me is the deal breaker when trying to close a deal. Like it's always consistently clients being like, "Oh, you mean I don't have to drive to your office, or I don't have to have a box and folder of receipts anymore, and I can just find things in seconds?" I've never had any pushback, and because they understand not only are they saving time, it actually makes our lives easier too. So for them, there's never been any pushback. There's no resistance, and they're always like actually excited. They love like hearing about what's capable through Dex, and for them, it's always been like, "Oh yes, please sign me up."
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. And so, look, a big thank you to Andrew. I sort of dragged him in last minute, but ultimately I thought it was going to be so much more valuable to have, a real firm owner that uses QuickBooks, that's, kind of like very kind of forward thinking and driving his team to sort of like, deliver a better service for clients to sort of talk to you all. Conscious of time, we're at the hour. If you do want to learn more about Dext, go to the QuickBooks marketplace, find us there, go to dext.com, come to the events, talk to kind of peers and get kind of like some perspectives. But thank you all. And yeah, love to connect on LinkedIn if you want more information. Just find me out. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Intuit. Thanks, Dext.